Thank you very much, Professor Bafwa Jimandria. He's a governance analyst, also a former UN advisor on governance, speaking to us on this. Trust that we'll be exploring other arms and legs of this running story. We'll bring you those updates as they become available, including conversations with environmental conservationist groups and NGOs who have also been raising concerns about this latest development. But let's take a step away from that. Government has given a hint of possible recruitment of Ghanaians into terrorist groups in the West African sub-region. Information Minister Nkrumah, who made the observation at a news conference in Accra, called for increased vigilance among the populace to curtail any possible attack.
According to the National Security Ministry, the West African sub-region alone has contributed to 49% of the 346 terror attacks across the African continent. This, government fears, makes Ghana a target for militant insurgency, with recent attacks on neighboring Togo and Burkina Faso. Information Minister, while calling for increased vigilance on the part of the citizenry, said a number of Ghanaians had been recruited into militant groups in the northern part of the country.
Increasingly, intelligence reports suggest that some Ghanaians have been involved in terrorist attacks in the Sahelian region. What this signals is that there has been the possible recruitment of Ghanaians by some of these terrorist groups in the West African sub-region. The Ministry of National Security has authorized an increased level of awareness among the intelligence community and seeks to deepen engagement with the Ghanaian public in line with contemporary security practices.
Deputy National Security Coordinator, however, maintained enough mechanisms exist to debrief any citizen who had been recruited.
This is one of the reasons why all Ghanaians and everybody in our jurisdiction has to be engaged, because it could be your brother, it could be your uncle who's been radicalized. We have a very effective monitoring systems with our partners and our embassies outside, and we are able to know Ghanaians who are involved. We also routinely try and rehabilitate some of them that we are able to bring back. So there's an effective strategy to make sure that, one, the recruitment doesn't happen, and two, even when it happens, the debriefing and the de-radicalization that goes on once they return is effective.
Government is to begin a series of citizen engagement and lectures across the country to increase awareness on the potential threats to the country.
Let's engage Albert Young. He's a national network coordinator of the National Network for Peace Building ONEP. He's joining us for a conversation. Thank you, Albert Young, for joining us. So we know that in the face of all of the alerts and advisories that are being given by the National Security Ministry and all the agencies in question, there's the key challenge of the conflicts, in some areas, especially the Boko area. In fact, the police leaked memo recently, cited some individuals from neighboring Burkina Faso having been part of those who may have infiltrated the system, to cause that particular attack there. As an individual, as I stand here, how concerned should I be, and what mechanisms practically must we take to avert a catastrophe?
Thank you. And the institution is West African Network for Peace Building. It's an interesting development, and I should say that in the past we had thought that it was far, but gradually we are getting that awareness that we need to be very stringent in terms of how we strategize and counter or prevent an infiltration or an emergence of extremism in our country. Just because we now understand so much of the cross-border dynamics within our neighbors, some of the recent incidences and the fatalities that were recorded, and the modus operandi of these people, as we usually know, was again indicated or shown in the countries that recently recorded this. Now, we have the existing conflicts, and that could be one of the areas of infiltration. And we have the Boko conflict, which has sporadic gun violence and very often involving people, youth, from one side and the other. then also, as you indicated recently, the suspicion that there could be some foreign elements. Now, just within that enclave, recently we had an incident occurring in the market. And then up to now, we are not sure or certain about arrest of those suspects. And that is where it requires a lot more collaboration with the communities, you know. And of course, we know we have unapproved routes, but to the extent that these people can get into a market center, attack people in a broad day like Rambo style, you know, and move away. Up to now, we have not had information about any arrest of such, you know, suspects.
Right.
And that can be concerning. You know, then we have the Doba-Kandiga conflict, you know, and about 2 days ago, we have another violence taking place there. They are just across bordering the Burkina Faso. These are two key conflicts that, you know, if we are not careful, they can become areas of infiltration. Now, within our own country, in terms of border control, we seem to be weak. On the other side, in Burkina Faso, for instance, there seems to be a lot more diligence in checks.
Okay.
On our side, it does not seem to be the case. And there are a number of community examples that they have cases, you know, of interference or compromise at various forms, human compromise, and then also material, you know. Then if we have many of these youth there is that growing youth bulge, and they are not actually, you know, controlled. And let's know that now we have social media, we have the information technology that can cut the youth off from any form of engagement. And so we need to also be very, you know, meticulous and particular about using social media to also counter this. And it requires a lot more community collaboration. Everyone should be involved as far as countering violent extremism is concerned. So I think that the call by the government is in the right direction, and we need to do that in a very targeted manner so as not to also give off some of the strategies. These people are monitoring our activities, our strategies through several forms.
Right. I was going to ask Mr. Oyang that I know the ministry has announced that tomorrow it will launch a call helpline, for example, so that as citizens or public, whenever we find ourselves in public and we have suspicious characters, we can quickly call these helplines. And I was wondering if that was not giving too much away.
It might be one of the strategies, but we should not so much popularize that. But it's important that all of us as Ghanaians need to be aware and alert of our own environment and how we conduct our businesses. Wherever we find ourselves, we need to be aware and alert, because it is a whole of society approach that should be required in order for us to prevent or counter any form of extremism within the communities in our country. Because you don't look at you as an individual and thinking that you could be safe. As the statement indicated, it does not discriminate. It does not indicate this is the person of religious background, of ethnic background, of business background, of whatever. You know, terrorism or extremism does not discriminate. Once that, you know, they perpetuate their agenda, you know. So we need to get everyone on board to support, and also especially with early warning intelligence, so that the security agencies can counter this.